morning, RL. Good morning, Max. Good morning to all of you and at home, and our best wishes to everyone who are en route. I know there are many people on planes, trains, and automobiles trying to make their way back. So I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. It's a different kind of Thanksgiving this year, and we'll talk about this. First, a couple things I just want to announce and to be grateful for. You remember a couple weeks ago, Bert and Carol came and they announced that they were giving us a $20,000 matching gift, that if everyone would match it, we would have $40,000, which would pay off our mortgage. And we gave it until January 15th, so everyone could prayerfully take it home. Well, yesterday I went to the mail and we're done. Thank you, Bert and Carol, again. And just, it was really kind of a nice day to go to the mailbox and go, oh. And just to remind, I know there's probably many gifts that are en route in the mail, and just to remind people that anything in excess, even though it won't be matched, it will go into our dedicated restricted account for capital expenditures, things like new roofs, a new wing on the west side of the building or anything like that. So just know it will go to something significant and will be parked in the special savings for a while. And also to acknowledge our refugee service project. I'm overwhelmed by people's just generosity. We have collected more than enough to welcome that family from Egypt, and when they arrive, I believe it's December 16th or something, more so that we can start to support a second family, which I think is pretty amazing. We did release a list of used or gently used items that we could still take in, because we have enough cash to buy those things, but it'd be nice to use the cash for family number 2. So if you saw that list on the email, if you have anything, it'd be nice to just have those donated and save the cash for the next family. So when we went into this, it was like, are we doing too much? And it was like, I think it was just right. And for reasons that I think I've mentioned a little bit before. And again, I can't stop talking about how these last 2 years have been historic and life-changing. And of course, at first it's like, yeah, everything's been a mess. But that's, out of things that look like a mess, amazing things start to happen. And I think we had gotten into kind of a mindset that I think we all shared, I think maybe even globally, this idea that, well, once we get through this, life will start again, And in many ways, we shut down our lives, and of course, it's been opening up the last few months, but it's still like, yeah, once, I hear the go thing, and we'll just go back. Well, it's not that simple, and it's quite a bit more complicated than that. And as I think I mentioned last week, if you look at healthcare professionals, we're going into what we call an endemic period, meaning it's kind of always going to be there, and we have to figure out how to negotiate our lives, and protocols will come and go, and there's nobody that's more bored of these protocols than me, quite frankly. But at this point, it's like, so what? We have to step forward as in our lives, even though we have these things to be concerned about, and as a spiritual community. And I think energetically stepping out for a refugee family and a second family, and looking at us and saying, let's finish this mortgage thing, I think it kind of jolted us out of this thing of, let's wait and do our work as a spiritual community until we're done with all this stuff that's inconvenient. So I think both these things have served a great purpose of saying we're here as a community and we still need to step forward. And yeah, sometimes it'll be with masks, sometimes it'll be without masks, and it's like, at this point, who cares? We just have to do our lives and we have to do our work as a spiritual community. We just have to. And yeah, there are times that we'll have to take different precautions. It's just the way that it is. And we're moving forward, and we're creating our lives in new and wonderful ways. So let's talk a bit about Thanksgiving. The title of my blog this week was, How Did It Go? I mean, I'm not, let me get out my crystal ball. Something tells me it wasn't anything like the last couple of years. Because, and one thing I pointed out in my blog is, I don't know about for you, but for me, holidays are great, like, snapshots in time for me. When you go, say, to a Christmas or Hanukkah or Thanksgiving, even though if someone had said, oh, how's things going? Oh, same old, nothing new. But when you take a snapshot in time, you realize, like going a year back, there's been a lot new. There's been a lot that has been going on. And when we go to our day-to-day, I think we lose sight of that. And things like Thanksgiving this year, what an interesting snapshot in time. So go back 2 years in a world of I hate to say normal. Is anything ever normal? But it was still Thanksgiving. Like what I love about Thanksgiving, and I really don't like the marshmallowy stuff, and we can put that aside. But what I really love, like, whoever thought of serving dishes with melted marshmallows? Who can't? I know. Let's put marshmallows on this. But the thing that I love about Thanksgiving is that it always has been a come one, come all sort of event. You could always set up a couple more seats at the table or at the coffee table or get out a card table. And I mean, years ago when I was hosting Thanksgiving in Los Angeles, I'd always have 5 or 6 people that had no idea they were going to show up. That, I don't know, was there like a light outside my house? They just showed up. And it was great. I think that was one of the gifts of Thanksgiving, that anything can happen and people can come up, and old friends, new friends, and family. And of course, last year, it was almost like the brakes were put on, weren't they? So that was an interesting snapshot that I'd say many, if not most people, didn't have Thanksgiving anywhere near where they would before, or at least with the numbers of people, that we kept to a very close-knit group that we were with all the time. And some people just says, it's too much to bother with, and we're just not going to do it. In fact, in our family here locally, we still potlucked as a family, and then we all went and got to go and with brief visits. And it was like, well, this is the weirdest thing. But then this year, it was like a hybrid. And I had so many people come to me say, I'm not really sure what to do about this situation, or what do I do about this person, or this thing, or do I still do this? And I think it was best said even by someone at our dinner, says, I think we're out of practice for this. We don't really know what to do. And the reason is because all norms have been broken in a sense. So I think the snapshot in time for this year is things are different. It doesn't mean that they're worse, but it's different. And I think, as I said last week, we are mindful this year to really think things through. And that reflects the mindfulness in our life right now. I've talked quite a bit about how, especially those last few months, it's kind of built up this reconsidering our lives on many levels. And coming to the realization that if has been something in our lives that have truly not served us, that newsflash, we don't have to do it anymore. Whereas maybe a couple years ago, we thought we just had to tough it through somehow. But en masse, people have come to the realization, again, you don't have to have food with marshmallows on it. Something simple like, who thought that I could just not do it, sort of thing. And so I think that brings a bit of depth to this Thanksgiving, to look at our lives and be thankful for so many things, but to be aware that life has changed. One of my favorite passages in the New Testament, which is challenging, is this. It says, always celebrate, pray without ceasing, and in all things be grateful. Now notice it doesn't say be grateful for all things, because I've got a list of things, I don't know about you. But it's saying, regardless of where you are in that, to find a depth of gratitude. Now, it's easy to be grateful for the stuff we really like, that's really obvious. And I think sometimes maybe Thanksgivings have been on a surface of that. Oh yeah, I'm so grateful for this, I'm so grateful for that, and this is good, and this is wonderful, and all this. But yet, when life becomes challenging, we might think it's binary. Either I'm grateful or not grateful. But I think these last couple of years have been a lesson of, in all things, be grateful, because there are a lot of things showing up that we would prefer not to be here. And part of the snapshot in time, I think, for holidays, and this particular, again, is to notice what is different. And I think it's important to first notice what is different that we don't like. And I think sometimes we try to put on a Stepford wife's face, like, oh, it's all good, it's all God, and it's great, and be dying inside, or just in great grief inside. And not to say that we should be wallowing in things that have not gone well, but we have to walk through them in some way. And the way that we do that is to recognize them. And I think one obvious thing at holidays in this snapshot in time over the years that I've noticed is the empty seat at the table. Many of our families, on one year, there will be someone who's missing, or sometimes through passing or death, and sometimes they're missing because something great happened in their life and they're hundreds of miles away. But yet, there's that grief regardless of what the circumstance of, oh, they're not here in their normal capacity anymore. And we can certainly, in this snapshot of time, be in mourning for a way of life that doesn't exist anymore. Because I don't know if it's dawned on you, but there is a whole way of being in the world, in our country, that doesn't exist anymore. And it's frustrating, and sometimes, I don't know about you, I just feel like a 5-year-old that I just want to throw a big old tantrum. Like, I don't want it to be like this. I want it to be how it was, kind of thing. And it's so frustrating. And the frustrating thing is, it doesn't matter how big the tantrum is, it's not going to change. Not to say that life is not changing, but we're not going to go backwards to a state of being that no longer lives or exists. So I think it is important in these snapshots in time to acknowledge that there has been some endings, and some significant endings. And of course, that's really how life is. There are always endings, but I think they feel a little bit more raw at this point in history. There's been so many endings. You just look around our town and things that have shifted in so many ways. And so I think part of this snapshot in time is to seek a sense of inner peace with it. Again, we can't change it. Of course, it's funny, one of my lines coming from Southern California, people say, doesn't it snow up there? Yeah, it does. And he says, are you okay with winter? In fact, the first winter I was here, after I'd been hired, people kept checking in and like, how are you doing? I think people expected I would get a moving van in the middle of the night and go back to Southern California because I was so freaked out about all the snow sort of thing. But my line is that I can't say that I'm in love with winter, but I'm at peace with winter. It happens. It blesses our community because a big part of our local economy is based on snow. So I can be magnanimous enough to be okay with winter. How silly is that, isn't it? So, but again, all, kidding aside, to become at peace with changes that maybe we're just not happy about, or we don't know where they're leading yet. And so a big part of a deeper Thanksgiving is to seek peace for that which we cannot control. It's beyond our control, larger events, and we are in a new world. And how do we navigate that? I think that's important. To be able to bless these endings and allow them to go on their way and make room for something else. And back to New Testament line of be joyful and to pray without ceasing. And the praying without ceasing, it doesn't mean that you're, whatever you grew up with, literally in prayer. In the Science of Mind philosophy, we teach that every thought, action, and thing you say is a prayer. I mean, it really is. It is a statement of what you believe and what you hope for, and that part of our philosophy is to teach ourselves to be aware of that and be conscious of what we think and what we say and what we do. That we can't, in a sense, say, I would like one thing to happen and then to do everything that's opposite. Or to say, I would like peace in the world, but yet I don't have inner peace, or I'm not working towards inner peace. And of course, this isn't to say that every little thought, we get kind of like, oh my gosh, I had a bad thought, cancel, cancel, cancel. It's going to destroy the world. My car, the four tires of my car are going to just pop right now because of this terrible one thought. It doesn't quite work that way either. As Ernest Holmes has said, it is a preponderance of our thought, meaning how we think most of the time that directs our life. And so you can have little pity parties and, oh my God, I can't believe my neighbor kind of thing, and you kind of like bring it back. So it's preponderant. So praying without ceasing, especially now, there are so many hot little buttons, to touch us right now, especially about COVID protocols and all that. It's just like, I have my 5 best lines ready to combat what they're going to say right now. So if you think of that as prayer without ceasing, what kind of prayer is that? I mean, really think about it. So the opportunity right now in this snapshot in time is to say, what is it that I want in the world? And am I a proponent of that, or am I in the way with what I'm doing? I mean, that's, I think, something really serious to think about. And through my actions and through my frustration and through I'm so tired of it being this way, am I actually in the way? And if there's some level that we are, we can actually change that in an instant. We can change that prayer that we have in what we think and what we say and how we accept or not accept other people, places, and things. So in that spending time with our endings, I think then we can have an even deeper sense of gratitude and to really acknowledge the amazing things that have happened in our lives over the last couple years. I don't know if we've even dared say that to ourselves, because there's been so many things that are like, what? Really? That? Just when I thought I had enough of outrage, here's another thing? It's kind of covered up the amazing things that have happened. And I think this holiday is a good opportunity to put the frustrations aside and really see that not only have amazing things happened, but truly the miraculous has happened. Again, we have been in a historically life-changing events. Your life is much different now than it was a couple years ago. Some of it has been very frustrating, but some other doors have opened up, where some seeds have been planted of things that can be. And again, in this reevaluation of many of us, maybe an idea of something that we would love to try to pursue before the inner response was, oh, I can't do that. And now, for many of us, the response is, well, why not? Yeah, I may be not qualified, not enough school, or not enough this, but you know what? Why not? So I think we're entering a period of why not? It could be possible. I can step forward in a different way. And as we think of this holiday, I think many of us we think of things that we have been blessed with or grateful for. And many people at their dinner tables last Thursday may have even vocalized it and gone around tables. What are you grateful for? And if you've done that and are doing that this week, and my challenge is with you to even go deeper with it. What is the biggest blessing out of this last couple of years that you can think of? And again, I'm not going to take a showing of hands, and this might not even be something that you can instantly come up with. It might be, it's like so obvious as a nose on your face, but you can't see it because there's so many things going on. I mean, there has been something amazing that has happened in each of our lives, and we've been too busy maybe to recognize it. So that's my challenge for this today and the next couple days, to really dig deep. Not go for the obvious things to be thankful for, and you should be thankful for those things, but go for the deeper things. And to even in this, to look over the last few years of what to be grateful for, but to look for something specific. Where in the past, either the last couple years or several years before, and something that maybe you didn't think was possible, but you consciously said, why couldn't it be possible? And you could see how that door opened up. We all have that. I know there's so many people that have made big changes over these last few years. Here's one that I just think is great for me personally. A few years ago, a few years ago, I had moved into my own little apartment after like decades of not living alone, and I guess through a period of just being by myself. And so many great things happened then, and after a period of time being myself, I thought, it might be nice not to be by myself. And not that I was, put an ad in the paper or anything. But what was so interesting is, as I had voiced to a couple people that, I think I'm just ready to kind of come out of this healing period. And I can't tell you how many people said, well, I hope you have airline miles. There's nobody here. You're going to have to at least, go a couple hundred miles to Boise. I mean, there's just nothing here. God, I'd hate to be you. And I kind of fell in. Oh yeah, I said, well, I kind of look around town and there's, I don't see anything, and I kind of fell into that, and I'm just thinking, God, I mean, how much money will I have to spend on airplane if I meet somebody, but then it dawned on me. I thought, I don't have to believe that. I mean, it was just, but it was almost like I thought, okay, so it was like, you teach this, but now you're believing this, which is contrary to it. And I thought, well, maybe I should entertain the ideas of what I teach. That it's not just like what I say when I go to work, but it's like what I'm supposed to pray without ceasing in my own life. And so I entertained the idea that I wouldn't have to use Delta miles, that I wouldn't have to drive to Boise and all that sort of thing. And as many of you know, something wonderful happened in my life, and to someone who was local. And we just had our 7th anniversary, which is really kind of amazing. But here's the other thing that is so amazing in this idea that we get of it has to be this way. One thing that's interesting in my profession is that so often clergy people take jobs in places that they don't know people. And holidays can be very isolating and even depressing. And guess what? I have a whole new ready-made family right here. Again, against the common idea of, oh, it's going to be so terrible. It's going to be so sad for you. Oh, and be sad for Reverend John. It's like, no, there's nothing to be sad about. I said, no. But it's something that simple. It's like, I changed my mind about it. It's like, was told, oh, this is what you'll have to do. And after a while, said, no, I really don't have to do that. So that's the kind of thing I'm challenging you to do this week. Where did you change your mind? And it's like, oh, and it just opened doors. And here's the great thing about this. It's evidence that you can do it again. That whatever situation you are in right now that you think, here's a whole list of why this won't work out, that there's an alternate list of how it can work out. And so, again, I think this Thanksgiving is such a wonderful opportunity because on one hand, we are in this feeling of saying goodbye. things that we would prefer not to happen. But we can challenge ourselves to see the open doors. So it's a different Thanksgiving, I think, than any of us experienced if we let ourselves. And it's an uncomfortable spot to be. I'm in this thing that I kind of don't like, but yet there's amazing things still at the same time. That's really the essence of being grateful in all things. It never appears to be humanly perfect, but it can still be amazing. Let your life be a prayer. So I just want to close with reading one thing from Ernest Holmes from Creative Mind and Success. He says, and it's about prayer. It says, prayer is, in its truest sense, is not a petition, not a supplication, not a wail of despair. It is rather an alignment, a unifying process which takes place in the mind as it reaches to its divine self and to that power which is greater than human understanding. In the act of such prayerful and reverent communion with Spirit, our senses the unity of good, the completeness of life, and at times the veil of doubt is lifted and the face of true reality appears. This consciousness, which has been referred to as the secret place of the Most High, is an experience rising out of the conviction that God is all there is, besides whom there is none else. So let's go within. And let us just be grateful. And let us recognize that a lot of things look like we don't want them to look like. But let's be grateful anyway. Some people showed up this Thanksgiving, like every Thanksgiving, in ways we preferred they didn't. Let's be grateful anyway. I get exasperated when I turn on the news. Let us be grateful anyway. Let us allow the door of greater possibility to be open. Let us be grateful within a period of history where there's a lot of evidence to not be grateful. Let us realize that the presence of the divine, of the universe, of God is right where we are. And we can make that power manifest in our lives in any way that we choose. Let us be grateful. And so it is.